Tim Kirby Russia hot takes, the Bering Strait and a bridge over it, live from the Bering Strait. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. In the Tim Kirby Russia hardcore chat, people were discussing, whether it would be a good thing or a bad thing for them to build a bridge or tunnel connecting Alaska with Russia. And I thought I'd address these issues because I'm literally like right next to there. So anyways, here we go. I've got 4 reasons why I think that this project will never happen, for better or worse. Some of them about whether it's good or bad, but just mostly about how it's just really not feasible. Now, first off, we have to remember that there's this thing called the Channel Tunnel connecting England and France, which was super difficult to build, but I would say most people would consider it to be a success. Obviously, some people in England might have wanted to stay a little bit more isolated from the continent, but overall, it's doable, right? We can make a pretty crazy long underground tunnel connecting 2 countries. So it is doable, but there has to be political will. There's point number 1. There is absolutely no political will. I mean, history shows that Britain and France have been at odds many times in the past, especially during like the Age of Sail and empires and all that stuff. But World War I, World War II, the Cold War, always on the same side. Then the European Union project started and everyone was excited about that. So there's definitely political will for something like that to happen. Russia and the United States have had terrible relations that just get worse and worse since the end of World War II. That's the big difference. There is no way that Russia or the United States could sign off on some sort of extremely complex, expensive, long-term cooperative plan right now. It's just not going to happen. It's going to take generations before that's even within the realm of possibility. Point number 2, if you look at where the channel is, it's not that far away from London, which is an absolutely titanic city, and England is a pretty population dense and wealthy country overall, and it connects to, right near Paris. I mean, relatively speaking, obviously you can't walk there to Paris, but from a trucker's perspective, it's right by Paris. Then you're getting into to Belgium and the Netherlands and Germany, and if you're really willing to push the gas pedal, you're talking about the Italian and Spanish markets and so on and so forth, right? That's some pretty sweet stuff. A lot of people, a lot of resources, a lot of demand. Well, it's not a heck of a lot of people in Chukotka or Alaska, are there? And if you were to build this amazing tunnel, well, what would be on the Russian side? A lot of uninhabited territory and giant mountains that you'd have to bore through. So, I mean, if you think about it, like, it's just a bad location. I mean, the English Channel Tunnel, connecting it to the French and British highway systems wasn't exactly the hardest thing in the world, was it? The nearest Russian highway, I think, might be 1,000 kilometers from the end point of that tunnel. So, it wouldn't just be the infrastructure project to make the bridge or tunnel, but to build gigantic infrastructure to connect that tunnel to actually get you to a major city. Probably the closest major city in Russia would be like Magadan, and that's like, I think, 200,000 people, or I don't know, from the American side it would be like Juneau, Alaska. That's not Paris and London, my friends. That's different league, minor league. Point number 3, why the super bridge or super tunnel between Alaska and Russia is never going to happen, is because friends, Russia's got other things on its mind. There are huge projects in Russia. They have wanted to for years to build a super bridge connecting the island of Sakhalin to the mainland. They've modified the railroads. They've kind of started it, but it hasn't been finished. But that's much more important and will really be beneficial to building up Sakhalin. As we heard recently, Sakhalin is improving its big gas projects and expanding them even more than they were before. So that's going to be very critical. There's also the project to turn Russia into this sort of river transport empire, where they're going to widen some channels and parts of the major rivers in order to connect the Caspian with the Baltic. And now that the special operation started, now they're going to connect it probably to the Sea of Azov, thus the Black Sea, and thus the Mediterranean. That's a huge, ultra-expensive project that doesn't involve teamwork with the United States and does involve connecting all of Russia's, major population centers, business centers, factories, and so on and so forth. There are other projects that are just way smarter. Number 4 is more on the sort of spiritual side. You know, people are arguing in the chat whether it would be awful to have this American influence coming into Russia from the West. Well, I don't know. That's kind of a debatable thing because there's not that many people in Alaska who are going to be running over the border to try to make everyone Protestant. Maybe there will be. I don't know. But the real influence that America's had over Russia has been from the TV and from the internet. You know, Facebook and Twitter and Hollywood movies and all that stuff. So I'm not super convinced by this cultural influence argument. But one thing is that, guys, when big canals and stuff are built, it does change the geopolitical landscape. I mean, if the Suez Canal didn't exist, right, the world would be different. If the Panama Canal didn't exist, the world would definitely be different. So, I mean, yeah, it does have a geopolitical effect. And that's one thing I think I said earlier in this video is how a lot of British people were a little bit salty about the Channel Tunnel because they liked the idea of England being sort of separate from continental Europe. And I think that both the Russians and the Americans kind of want, especially right now, want to be separate from each other. And if you think about it, if anyone in America does still, American power, there's plenty of people in America with brains left. I meant to say, in the American halls of power with brains left, they should know that one of the best things about America is to the east and west, there's 2 oceans. To the north is a country with 1/10 the population that can't seem to be able to build itself up to ever become a competitor. And so you're left with one real geopolitical competitor, being Mexico and Central America, which so far haven't provided amazing competition to America. So America's geopolitical setup is amazing. Russia's is terrible. Russia's always surrounded by some growing power somewhere. So Russia's in a terrible situation. So the thing is, should America take a risk and ruin its perfect geopolitical layout just to, I don't know, build some tunnel to maybe send trucks really expensively to Russia when they could just, you know, load up a boat in San Francisco and send it to Vladivostok for way cheaper and not take any geopolitical risks? Guys, I think this whole like boat super container issue is probably actually, that's point number 5. Boat super container ships are amazing. They can take a ton of stuff real cheap all over the world. Russia has gigantic ports that are connected to huge railroad lines. That's it. If you want to have a bunch of trade between America and Russia, we've got, America? We've got Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Russia, you've got what will be Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk will be connected to the railroad, and Vladivostok is a gigantic port city that already is. Boom, done. So guys, that's why I think there's never going to be any sort of bridge or tunnel between Alaska and Russia. It's just a terrible idea on so many levels. So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you like the opinions coming out of my big fat mouth, then join up on my Telegram channel. That's Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram. Link, of course, in the description.